Hello, this is Bill Hitchcock, and it is June 8th, 2020 when I'm recording this clip. We're on part 3 of our What If analysis tools in Excel. On this particular clip, we're going to be working with our loan spreadsheet and create a two variable data table. The idea behind a two variable data table is you have two different input variables. For instance, the cost of the home, and I also want to take a look at the interest rate that I'm going to be charged, and then find out how is that going to impact just one output variable. And in this case, we're going to do the periodic payment. So let's scroll down here to where we've got the two variable data table set up. And last time what I had done is just merged across this label for the two variable data table. And what we do for our table is we're going to decide what we want going across here in the rows and what we want have going down here in, or I should say going across on the columns, sorry. And then going down this way, what we have going down in our rows this way to act as our input variables. So up in the upper left hand corner of a two variable data table, that's where you make a reference to your output variable. So don't just type in the number, type in a reference to it. So you type in an equal sign and you point to the cell that contains the output. So if you want to see how much in total you're going to pay, you'd click on that cell. But in this case, I want to find out how much is my periodic payment, my monthly payment going to be if I change the amount that I'm borrowing versus how much my interest rate is. So I can format that just to make it a little bit easier to read. We've got that number there. Now up here at the top, this is where I want to make references to how much we're going to borrow for the amount of my house. So let's do a reference to the cost of the house, the $250,000. We can format that. And we can get rid of the decimal places. And then let's increase that in this case, let's try $20,000 increments. So I'm going to reference the 250,000 plus another $20,000. So I've got 270. I can copy that one over. In fact, let's do a couple over. Widen out these cells so they're all the same width. And that looks good. Now going down here, I want to have the interest amount. So that's the APR. So I've got 4% interest. I can format that with a percent sign. Let's increase the decimals. And then I want to find out how does that, what happens to my monthly payment if I increase this in just 1/4% changes, because that often happens is, the bank will increase it anywhere from maybe 1/8 of a percent, 0.125%, to maybe 1/4% at a time. So I'm going to type in equals the previous cell plus 0.25%. And let's get rid of a couple of those decimals there. And let's copy this down. Now you can decide how far down you want to copy this. To me, the text has it going pretty far down here. I don't know. Don't take it too far. You'll kind of figure out, how much you really want to see. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight these last few cells and go to clear formats and get rid of that. So there's my two variable data table. That part's set up. So let's save this because we want to save before you do something to change it. So kind of like with our one variable data table, you set up the table first and then highlight the cells. So we highlight the upper left cell, hold my shift key, right, and I'm just hitting the down arrow key to select all of those cells. Then I go to data, choose what if analysis, choose data table. My row input, we'll try that for the house payment. So let's just click here and use the pointing method to get up to the cost of the house. There it is, cell B2. The column input cell, let's try my APR, cell B4. Hit OK and cross our fingers and see what happens. All right, some of the cells don't look like they're formatted. So what we can do is we've got our budget format that had the conditional formatting. Let's grab that one. Go to Home, choose Format Painter, and let's format paint all of these cells in the table. And take a look at it and see if we've got anything that's working correctly. So at 4%, we're looking at 1145.80, and that's what we had for our periodic payment up here. So that looks all right. At $270,000, it looks like it's going up to 1241. So what I'm going to do here, just so I'm not changing too many things, I'm going to actually hard code this number in 250,000. And let's try changing the cost of our house to 270. And we got 1,241.28, and that's what I was getting down here. So that looks correct. And it looks like everything else is probably working just about right. I'm going to change this 4% and just make it 4%. So again, I can just kind of double check my numbers. The APR, let's make it 6% and check to see if those numbers, here's 270,000 at 6%, sure enough, $1,558.83. So it looks pretty good. Let's try changing our budget. If our budget happened to be $1,500, you can see there's some of the numbers, the combinations of what I could afford, and with just if I was looking at about a $310,000 home, interest rates have to stay below 4.5% before I can't afford that anymore. So there is a fair amount of interest rate sensitivity on just relatively small amounts of interest rate changes can really have a big impact on what your periodic payment happens to be for when you're buying a home. So we've got goal seek done, where we're changing some of the numbers to find out the periodic payment here. We had one variable data table so we can see the payment, the total paid, and the total interest. So multiple outputs. And finally down here, the two variable data table, just one output variable, and we've got multiple or two inputs, the cost of the home and the interest rate. Finally, one last thing to make this two variable data table a little bit nicer is you can format this cell, this reference to the payment. If you right click on it, choose Format Cells, choose a custom format, and up where it says the type, just type in a word. So I'll put in quotes the PERPMT for the periodic payment. Hit OK. And it looks as though I've got a word displayed there, but it really is the reference to this cell up here, cell B12, which is my periodic payment. So using a custom format, you can make that a little bit easier to read and understand what the number is. You can always try that on your spreadsheet as well. So that takes care of the goal seek in the data table, the last thing that we have to do is come back and take a look at the scenario manager and do some things with different scenarios. We'll do that on the next clip.